Hi, you're listening to Java with Jen with your host, Jenna Lee Samuel. On this show, I bring the simplicity of hearing God's voice into everyday life in a no-nonsense, authentic, and super practical way. With coffee in hand and real life in our faces, let's do this. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me here for another episode at Java with Jen. My guest I have today is super fun. He has become a friend of my husband's and mine. His name is Mike Williams, and some of you may know him from his comedy career. He's a very funny fella, but his life took an interesting twist when the Lord got involved, and he shifted into not totally shifted, he's still in comedy, but shifted into world missions, and in short, saves and rescues children from sex trafficking. I'm going to let him tell all the details, but Mike, thanks so much for coming on my show.
Hello, Jen. I cannot have Java with you, though, just so you'll know. I don't do coffee.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I remember coffee. I miss coffee.
Why? Why did you give it up?
Well, you start getting old and you start having some heart problems, and the doctors say no caffeine. So I have not had a caffeine product in 13 years.
Bruh.
13 years without coffee. The first 6 months, it was hard to get out of bed. But now that I'm caffeine free, I wake up every morning at 5:30. I jump out of bed, no slag, no back, just I'm ready to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you do green tea or matcha or anything?
Nothing that has any type of stimulant or anything like that in it. Yeah.
Wow.
So for me, an energy food is like have a carrot. Woo!
Oh, yay. I heard apples have natural caffeine. Maybe there you go. Well, I will drink enough for the two of us. And
Thank you.
yes, absolutely. So let me read a little bit of your bio so people have a well-rounded idea of who you are. I'm excited to get into our fun little conversation here. Okay, so Mike Williams is a hilarious storyteller, which I can attest is true. We went out to dinner at, where did we go? The Roadhouse Steakhouse? And I think it was Roadhouse. And we just had a really great time, lots of laughing. And my son came along with us, my youngest, and he just had the best time. Anyway, so he is a songwriter, also a musician, a theologian, and award-winning comedian with over 30 years of ministry experience. He's known for his Dry Bar and Bananas comedy specials. Mike has written 20 books, holy cow, I didn't realize that, and released 18 audio-video projects, and he has toured with top names in Christian music. His comedy is played daily on Sirius XM, and he's a Gospel Music Association Dove Award winner. Mike, I'm learning things about you right now. Mike's life story is as inspiring as his humor. Adopted after being rescued from inner city trauma, he and his wife, Terica, is that how you say her name?
Teresa, but close enough.
Oh, okay. Later adopted a child from a similar background. In 2010, they founded Cups Missions, a thriving ministry that serves trafficked children, feeds the impoverished, and operates schools and churches in the Dominican Republic, Malawi, and Mexico City. Mike's latest novel, co-authored with W.R. Ponder, tells the gripping story of a young girl navigating life-altering decisions in the wake of Roe's overturn. Whether through comedy or missions, Mike's life embodies his motto, live for a statue, not for a tombstone. Was that a fair read-through?
I don't know if I can live up to that.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I took your bio and I dropped it in ChatGPT and I said, make this shorter. And so this is the ChatGPT shortened version of your bio.
But I only sent you one paragraph. They made it big.
Oh, gosh, that's funny. Okay, so I mean, just off your bio, I feel like we can have a 3-hour conversation, me asking you questions. But why don't you take us into, and this is how I was introduced to you, obviously. Okay, so my husband went on a missions trip with Mike to the went to see Mike in the Dominican and serve in their ministry and the trafficking down there. And when he came back, he told me the story about this comedian who had this thriving ministry or thriving career in entertainment here in the U.S. as a comedian and gave it all up and sold everything and moved down to the Dominican to work with trafficked children. So why don't you give us your version of the story?
God has been good. I'm a rescued kid. Many years ago, God reached into the inner city of Chicago, Illinois, and pulled me out of this horrible, tragic family and dropped me into a Christian home. And so at this point, I get, raised in the church, very, very strict church. To give you the denomination, we were GARBC. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Uh-uh.
Um, it's garb. Okay, I mean, it's is what the which is such a horrible acronym to
Yeah.
have for a church. General Association of Regular Baptists. Okay,
Hmm.
general, not specific. Association, loosely connected. Regular, maybe we were lactose intolerant. I don't know. Um, I know that we weren't allowed to smoke, drink, cuss, chew. We couldn't play cards. We couldn't play old maid cards because somebody could drive past your house at 55 miles an hour. So you playing old maid cards, think you were playing poker. If you're playing poker, you're probably gambling, and we all know that gambling leads to premarital dancing. Okay, that was the home that I was raised in. Very, very conservative. And so anyway, I grew up. I play guitar. Guitar wasn't welcomed in the church at all, and in my church because guitar, you immediately think of drums, and drums is what got Satan kicked out of heaven.
Oh, right.
And most of you know that. Read the older versions, the original
He's joking.
text.
He's joking, guys.
Yeah. Yes. If they can't put that together, they probably need to turn the rest of the podcast off this week. Hey, but no, so I grew up with a little bit of humor in my life and a little bit some neat things happening, and being knowing the Lord and saying, Lord, how do you want to use my life? One thing led to another. I started being a youth pastor, and I get a call to start writing comedy for this major name. We'll leave those names out of it today. This major name comedian guy. And then people start calling me, and I start going around doing comedy. And my life changed. I never had any idea. I never wanted to be a comedian. I'm not a great storyteller. I'm a horrible, horrible joke teller. Okay. It's just when I would talk, people would laugh. And it just progressed and progressed and progressed. And I promise you, we're getting to the point here.
Uh-huh.
I know that it's just like first and second mic here. Right, we're reading here. Sorry about that. But my wife and I would, in the summer with our kids, we had the bus thing, and we would go around to the different music festivals, and we'd work the music festivals. And a friend of mine offered me a chance to come to the Dominican Republic. He said, "You guys always take the summer off from your touring schedule, and you tour with the family. Come to the Dominican, spend the summer in the Dominican Republic. My family has a place there."
Mm.
So we ended up going there, and here we find ourselves in a place called Sosua, Dominican Republic. It's on the north coast of the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
And we find ourselves sitting in this very touristy town, looking something, like New Orleans downtown, that type of a feel to it. A lot of restaurants, and there we are sitting there with our kids, and we're looking at people sitting next to us, basically men, older men from Europe and from the United States, who were sitting there with girls who were 10 through 30 years old. But let's start with the 10-year-olds. And my little daughters would try to wave at them and make eye contact, and they would just kind of sit there with their heads down. And we found out very quickly that what was happening is these were not families. These were men who had come down and arranged to rent these children, if I can use that word,
Yeah.
children, to rent them for the week. And they would stay with them. They would take them out to feed them. But then the rest of the time, we'll not go into that.
Yeah.
We all know what trafficking is.
Yeah.
And it broke our hearts.
Wow.
And Jen, when you see something like that, the immediate, here we are, Christians, we're compassionate. The immediate thing is to first say, Lord, do you know what's going on here?
Yeah.
As if he doesn't.
He's like, oh, no, I didn't. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for the update. He's out, Gabriel, I told you to tell me when things are going bad. But my wife and I have always felt like when God exposes us to something, the Bible says that our steps are ordered by the Lord.
Yeah.
There's a reason you and I are talking today. There's a reason why whoever is listening right now, when they're listening, is listening to this. This is not an accident. Our lives are not accidents. From birth to grave, we are not an accident. Our life is not an accident.
Yeah.
And what we're exposed to is not an accident.
Mhm.
And so we always approach prayer and saying, God, you showed us something. Do you want us to do about it? And so we didn't know. And I'll be honest with you, you read such a wonderful bio. I hate to shed negativity on me, uh, but for 3 years, I said no to God. For 3 years, I said we felt like God had spoke to us and said, "Okay, that moves your heart. You come and do something about it." And well, you do something about it, okay, but you come and do something about it. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
And for 3 years, basically, I paid the Lord off. I bought indulgences for you 1400 Catholic folks out
Sent
there.
missionaries.
Right. Exactly. And please, I'm not saying that everybody is called to the mission field. Do not.
Right,
Okay. Most people are called to support. But unfortunately, or in our case, fortunately,
Mhm.
God had spoke to us and called us to do something personally
Yeah.
about it. And 3 years into it, I remember I was sitting on a cruise ship overlooking the Bahamas, and I had this beautiful, beautiful veranda outside. It was a lovely room, and we were on. It was on the Premier Christian Music Boat, which, by the way, if you haven't been on it, please go on. It's a great trip. Okay, um, but I was miserable. I was miserable because God had called us someplace, and we were like Jonah.
Mm.
We were saying no. Okay. Well, we were better than Jonah because
Yeah.
we were at least sending money. I think Jonah was just cheap. Okay. He wasn't even sending other guys. Okay. Could have at least sent a friend. Could you go to Nineveh for me and talk to them? I'm not good. I'm busy. I'm making a model airplane this week. Um, but so I finally surrendered and I went back. My wife was not with me on that trip. I had 14 other comedy friends with me on that trip. And went back home and I took my wife out to dinner. When you're getting ready to drop this kind of news on your wife, you need to take them to a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
Jen, you can relate to that,
That's
okay?
fair.
And
That's fair.
so I took her out to the same restaurant that I proposed to her at so many years before. That Burger King is still open,
Okay.
and so
Stop it.
there's something about the warmth of that orange Formica
Oh,
that just warms the heart.
it's terrible.
And I said, "Baby, we've prayed, we've given, we've supported. I think it's time for us to go." And my wife said, "When do we leave?" And the next day we went out and we bought a for sale sign out down at Lowe's and put it in our yard. And 90 days later, all the stuff inside our home was sold, and I had our bags packed, and we were on our way to the Dominican
Yeah.
Republic,
Wow.
having no idea what we were doing. Yeah, there you
Oh,
go. That got us to the Dominican.
no, that did. Okay, so I want to ask a question for my listeners because, of course, one of the focuses on the show is hearing God's voice. And I like to highlight in everyone's story how hearing God's voice, A, it's not complicated. It's simple, so simple, we can very easily bypass when he's speaking. But it's also special and unique to every person. You know, there are a lot of similarities, but then there's a lot of unique timbres, if you will. So when the Lord was speaking to you, how specifically did he speak? Like, did he drop like a thing in your heart, like where he said, "Thus saith the Lord, go to the Dominican"? Or was it like repeated things getting highlighted to you? Was it just a deep moving impression? Was it just something you could never stop thinking about?
It was in Hebrew. That was the hardest part.
Stop it.
But
Stop it.
fortunately, my Google Translator was there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I typed in the hieroglyphics and it popped up, "Go to the Dominican."
The
Okay.
episode is over. We're done. No, keep going.
You know, some people hear an audible voice. Now, my background is in electronics and audio, so I happen to know that there's no such thing as an audible voice. What's moving between us is vibrations that our ear senses and translates into what our mind hears. There is no audible going between us. Okay. And so when God speaks to us, he speaks to our heart, he speaks to our mind. Okay. The voice we hear is his spirit speaking with our spirit. And then we have the choice of what we do about it. Sometimes it's our own subconscious, maybe, that speaks to us. Sometimes it's our own compassion or empathy, but there's a difference between compassion and empathy. Empathy is when you see something, you go, "Ooh, that hurts."
Yeah.
Ooh, that's wrong. We every day we're hit with empathy. You watch TV and you see the guy who's getting ready to ride his bicycle off of his
Oh,
roof, thinking he's going to fly through the air and land in his swimming pool. But we know that the only reason this is on TV is because he didn't make it. Okay.
yeah.
But even though we know he's going to crash, as he goes off of the roof and lands halfway between the pool and the ground with his bike, and we immediately go, ooh, right there.
Yeah.
That's empathy. Empathy. We can all feel that. Compassion is, as Jesus described with the Samaritan on the road. It says, when he saw him, he went to him and he bound up his wounds and he provided medicine and he provided antiseptic and he took him to a place where he could be helped and he invested in his life and he followed up on him later. He said, if there's anything else that he needs, I'll take care of it. That's compassion.
Yeah.
So when we see a need, we have to say, okay, Lord, am I viewing this need so that I can call it out to you in prayer? Okay. Or am I seeing this need because you're wanting me to do something about it? And that's really how, when you really want to know God's voice, then you let him, you fill your mind with him. Christian books, one of my favorite Christian books is by C.S. Lewis.
Mhm.
Okay. Another one is called The Bible. It's a very good one
Very
too.
good one. It's a good one.
The second two-thirds especially. But the New Testament, folks, in case you were wondering about that, I mean, you don't know. How many books are there now? What, 50, 60? I can't remember. Um, but
66.
Oh, there you go.
There you
You're
go.
going old school on it. And so, but when we fill our hearts and our minds with the Word of God,
Mhm.
then it's in there, and then we just listen and we respond. But if we don't respond, we stop hearing that voice. We've got to respond.
Yeah, that's really good. In fact, I read a scripture the other day that said, and I wish I could remember the address. I think it was in John, but it said, if you love me, you will obey my commands. And he who loves me, the Father will reveal himself to. And so, or he who obeys me, the Father will reveal himself to. And I loved that it tied, like, if you actually love the Lord, then you'll obey him, which implies that you're hearing him, right? How can you obey unless you're hearing, right? And so you're hearing him, you're obeying him, but then the promise in that obedience is God will reveal himself to you. So if you want to have encounters with the Lord and have deeper relationship with the Lord and know him in a way that the people around you don't know him, obedience is the key. And so I love what you're saying here.
You know, I should have just let you say that first because it was so much better and shorter.
Nope, yours was funnier. We're all playing our part here.
Well, I mean, think about this, Jen. At some point, you were not a podcaster.
Hmm.
Okay. At some point, you were doing what you were doing at that time. I'm not saying it was bad. It was what you were doing at that time.
Momming.
But then God somehow spoke to you through those magical headphones you have there, and you said, "All right, I'll do it." You invested in it. You went out, you bought the microphone, you bought the windscreen, you put things together, you researched how to do it, and you listened.
And I
But
cried
when
a lot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the coffee if you get enough caffeine. No, I'm just kidding. But so all of us have followed God in our heart and life at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. All of us have made those choices, even though we might not have thought, oh, yeah, this is God's leading. It's just God's Spirit was speaking to us, protecting us on our journey, telling us to turn right instead of turn left. And we don't even know why we did it. That was God leading you,
Yeah.
and you were following, not knowing. I want to be listening to God and follow him, knowing that I'm being led by
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference.
There's a difference. And I think that we'll always have a mixture. And I think it kind of takes some pressure off too, knowing that I can rest in the fact that even though there's like this instinct in me and I'm like, oh, I don't know why, I just feel like I got to go this direction. And like just knowing that the Lord's leading me and I don't always have to have the mental acuity to understand what's happening. And I can trust he's just ordering my steps. It's a blessing. Um, but I also like to know when he's speaking so that I can have a little more authority about it. Okay, so you ended up in Dominican. You guys sold everything.
Here we are.
Here you are, you're landing in Dominican. Where did you go from there? Like, did you already have like a system you were stepping into so that things were planned and prepared and ready to, you just a machine you just took over, or did you have to build from the ground up?
We went down, we spent the first year working with another Christian ministry down there. They were not a ministry that was involved in trafficking,
Hmm.
but it gave us a home base. We helped them and we served them. And then God began to reveal to us how we could make a difference, because going, I need to make a difference, and how to make a difference are often two different things. And you
Oh
have
yeah.
to wait for God to reveal that. And God often reveals things through things as we go. Okay,
Mhm.
as we move forward, that He reveals things to us. So we went down there and began to say, okay, how could we impact this? And then after a little time, we left that mission. We love them very deeply. They're great folks. They're still good friends of ours. But God put us into the focus position that we are in, and we
Mhm.
begin to go up to these poor, very poor villages, villages of sometimes 500 people that would be just abject poverty. You've seen it. We've all seen the videos around the world, and these were the villages that the traffickers would target.
Mm.
They would target those villages because the people were so poor.
Yeah.
Uh, the Dominican has what we call the Dominican fairy tale. It says this, to your daughters, you go out and you find a man, especially an American man. That's what they really target,
Mm.
American men. And which is, by the way, 7 to 1 what come over to the Dominican Republic. Okay,
Wow.
on the plane, seven men for every woman
Wow.
there, and there's a reason.
Mhm.
Um, you go out, you find one of these men, you do whatever he wants you to do, including if he wants to do drugs, you do drugs with him. If he wants to drink, you drink with him. Whatever you want uh, there, and then you connect with him on Facebook. And then when he goes back, he will be so enamored with you, he'll want to turn around in 2 weeks, he'll be back and he'll come back again. And you do whatever he wants you to do, because one day he will take you back to the United States. You'll get married, you'll live in a mansion, because we all live in mansions in the United States in
Mhm.
their mind. In their,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
for most of us, our houses, no matter probably no matter who's listening today, compared to the homes that they're coming from, it is a mansion.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you'll live in a mansion. You'll be able to send money back home to your family. You'll be able to pay for your brother to get a motorcycle, and he can be a motorcycle driver, and he can provide transportation for the family and have a job. Do it for your family. And so it's not looked at as strange. It's not looked at as weird. We, every day around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we see these girls who put on these little spandex outfits, hop on the back of a motor concho, and ride from that village and villages. Now we have about 6 villages that we're working with, and they ride downtown
Mhm.
uh, to just wait on the street. We also have the Russian mob who has come in and taken especially the younger girls and puts them online, that where they're not even
Ugh.
in front of the people, and so you can order your girl online when you get there. I could tell you some horrible stories that your listeners don't want to hear, but
Yeah.
let me tell you, everything you can possibly imagine, folks, I'm telling you, it's much worse than
Wow.
that.
Wow.
And so we go in and we say to these, we may not be able to rescue every girl on the street, but their younger sisters that are coming along are getting ready to go out there. I mean, one night, Jen, we were leaving the hotel and I saw a flashbulb go off, and I walked down this little alley and we meet this girl. And she's glassy eyed. You could tell she'd been drugged pretty well, and she's 11 years old. And the mother's taking pictures of her so that they can put her online with the company that does that. And this is her first night to work the street, because today was her birthday. She turned 11 years old.
Wow.
What do you do? Yeah, that kind of stuff breaks your heart, and you say, I've got to do something about it. So what we do is we have a school, a discipleship training and sewing program that we get these girls into
Wow.
and teach them an option. Okay. Uh, People say, but I bet it doesn't make what the girls make on the street. No, it doesn't. But let me tell you what, you might be surprised to know that these girls working on the street, most of them are lucky to make $5 a night
Wow.
for destroying their body and getting diseased. It's tragic, but $5 going home is 5 pounds of beans or 5 pounds of rice. That minimal amount of money makes a huge difference. I mean, here is something we tip on the side. Here it's something oh, that's $5. Yeah, whatever, it's cheap. But there, our spare change
Wow.
changes a person's life
Hmm.
in the third world, whether that's through cupsmission.com, our mission. Okay. Notice how I worked in the website
Yeah,
there
that was
for,
very, very smooth. I like that.
yeah, I just slid cupsmission.com. Right. Nobody would even hear cupsmission.com in there, but it just that in there, or a number of other missions that are around the country too,
Yeah.
that are doing this type of work. And we can have a part. So we went down and we started ministering to girls. And so there we are. We've got bakery program. We got 4 bakery schools, 4 sewing schools,
Wow.
5 community centers, multiple churches. Yeah.
That's incredible. And then boys too, right? You guys work with boys as well, because sadly, as it
Yes,
is, boys get trafficked as well, right?
they do. And if we're raising up good, godly girls to avoid trafficking,
Uh-huh.
then we need to raise up some godly men to marry those girls.
Yeah.
Sometimes we in the church world we fix things what we think, but we don't think about all the ramifications of it. So we really want to work for that multiple ramification fix.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So now the thing that fascinated me about your story when I first learned about you was that, you know, on the front end, essentially you kind of walked away from a comedy career to go do this. So that's probably how it
Right.
looked and felt. But you haven't entirely walked away from your comedy career. So how do you use your comedy to help fund and fuel what you're doing in the Dominican?
That's a great question. Comedy is who I am. If you're talking to me, I have a lot of people that ask me to do funerals, and a lot of people who ask me to do their funeral.
Oh gosh.
Right? I know, because as we say it, I put the fun in funerals.
Oh.
And, hey, if it's going to be a celebration, let's party. Let's
Mhm.
have a celebration. And for those of us who know Jesus Christ, it is a celebration.
Yeah.
It's a graduation, and nobody cries at graduation. And so, but no, I still get the opportunity. When we did this, we left, and the agents said, and the different folks said, if you leave the country and you're not in the limelight where people see you, your career will tank, will go downhill.
Mm.
And I said, well, then so be it. God has called us to do this. Many missionaries come back for what they call itinerating. Okay, that's a spiritual word. In the Greek, it's itinerary. I just made that up. Uh, and what it means is come back and ask different churches for money. Okay, that's what it means. That I said. So instead of itinerating and going to churches, I'll just come back for 6 weeks out of every year, and I'll go around the country and do comedy events.
Mhm.
And so we didn't ask churches to support us. We had churches that came down. We had churches that supported us. We had churches that heard about us and said, let's help you with something. But pretty much I would come back and tell a few jokes, sing a few stupid songs. I wrote a silly song this morning. Yeah. And so,
Are you gonna sing it for us?
no, I'm not,
Oh.
because your people would not think I was very spiritual.
Well, I'm sure.
But
Okay.
it was I'll tell you, it was basically, it was about a friend of mine. I have
Mhm.
a friend who every week he would pocket dial me. You know how your phone would just dial
Yes.
somebody.
Yes.
Every week he would pocket dial me, and I would listen in on his conversation. As I don't know how it would call me. I don't know if I was the first person on his list or something like that, but it would call. And he did this for like 3 years. I mean, it would go off when he was in the shower, and you'd hear him in there singing the shower, water, and he'd be going,
Oh.
staying alive, And so, and then 3 years, after 3 years of this, it
Uh-huh.
just stopped.
Oh,
It just
that's
stopped. He
sad.
never pocket. Right. Oh, I know. And I missed it. and and I got to thinking about that. And I got to thinking about, I've been trying to write the world's perfect country song for years, which I think I may have just finished this morning. But
Okay.
when I go there, it's not ready for prime time. But so anyway, he hadn't pocket dialed me in a long time. And I wrote a song, a sad song about a relationship that had gone bad, how it started out so great. But the tagline is, now you don't even butt dial me no more. Okay. So that's
That sounds like a great country
oh,
song.
next time I'm in Texas, I'll put on my hat and we'll appreciate it together.
There we go. I love that. Okay, well, I love the creativity of how you decided, because I grew up a missionary kid. And so I grew up where we would go from church to church raising support. And
Right.
there's a time and a place for that. And how else are missionaries going to get support but from the churches, right? But I didn't love growing up that way, in that I didn't like feeling like we were professional beggars, which probably means we weren't doing it very well, you know. But so I appreciate the fact that you were like, let's do something a little bit different. Let's do missions a little differently and fund it differently. I just think that's so creative. And I love it. And I love that then you can also bless churches, because Mike, of course, you came to our church. And so we had I think it was a Wednesday night service or something that we had you come. And it was a lot of fun. The people loved it. The people loved having you there. And I think we were able to send you with an offering. I hope we were. And so,
You guys were very generous. Thank you.
okay, good. I'm glad. And so for those who are listening, if you're like, oh, this would be great, we would love to have Mike, we would love to help support what he's doing, there's a few ways they can get involved. So one would be to have you come during that 6-week part of the year or whenever you're traveling, and they could come have you speak / make people laugh. But then they could also come and do a missions trip with you, correct? Or how else can they help get involved?
Great ways. If they would love to come down and do a mission trip or considering it, they can go to Cups Mission, CUPS, just like that coffee cup that they're viewing in right in front of them, right there in your hand. Cups, CUPSmission.com, and they can look at our serve team trips, and they could be on it. We've had people as old as 84 years of age, and she made it almost halfway through the week before she passed, but she had a good first of the week. No, she made it the whole way. We've had kids as young as 4 years old. That was an absolutely crazy trip. I said, oh, those people will never be back. Those people who brought their 4-year-old and now run an orphanage in the Dominican Republic. So, you know, God works in great ways. If you'd like me to come by and do some humor at your church, very appropriate church humor, by the way, you can check that out. My name is Mike Williams. You just type in Mike Williams and the word comedy. Why does somebody just send me messages in the middle right there of our conversation? Sorry about that.
They love you.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sure it's there. I have some people who are very concerned about my warranty on my car, and they call me every week just to
so
make sure that my
thoughtful.
car. I know my kids don't do that. My kids don't do that. So, okay.
Okay, so one thing that so for what he was just saying, go on a mission, and then I want to tell a little story about the Stephen and Shiloh. They went together, and Shiloh was, let's see, he's 12 now, so he must have been 11, I guess, right? It was last year.
Yeah.
I think he was 11 when he went, and Mike, and they took a team down to the red light district, right?
Right.
And
Right.
they had some teenage boys with them too. So I didn't know that Stephen was going to be taking my little innocent 11-year-old to the red light district till after it was over. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little mad about it. But at the same time, he said, Jen, we sat all the boys down afterwards, and it became one of those pivotal, life-altering moments where they saw firsthand the dangers of pornography and what it
Right.
does to humans.
Right.
And that was a very life-changing moment for my son. Do you want to talk about what you do when missionaries come down and how they minister?
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to do that. People get worried about that. They say you know, you're going out on the street. What are you going to do? We have a little restaurant that we work with. We go down and we sit at a restaurant, and the girls that are walking around simply walk by. And as they're walking by, the ladies from our team, many of the ladies from our team, go out there and just talk to them. And here's what we're basically saying to them: we know how dangerous it is for you out here on the street. Um, we pray for you. How can we pray for you tonight? And what you're going to find is when they find out that our teams are out there, they will come from blocks away just to be prayed for, to have their children prayed for. I rarely meet a girl out there who doesn't have a child or two. Okay, unless they're really, really young, and even then, sometimes the 13-year-olds have children. Okay, that are out there, and so we're able to share the gospel, and they want to hear it. They want to be prayed for. I mean, there's folks that have lived in the United States and never shared their faith one time, ever. Well, here's a place where people want to hear the good news. They want to hear a message of hope. They want to hear a message of encouragement. They want to hear that they can be forgiven and redeemed. And so we give them the opportunity to see that. You say, well, what about the way that the girls are dressed? Well, some of them are dressed just like business people because that's their motif out there. That's what the buyer wants for that. And others are dressed very scantily. My girls have been going down there since they were 6 and 7 years of age. And so they're perfectly comfortable out there. You know, we realize that it goes deeper than that. We're talking to people's hearts.
Yeah.
And our kids have access. Let me say this. Let me speak to every parent out there right now. If your child has a cell phone, they have access to so much. You go, hold it. I have all the blockers on there. Let me promise you, you don't. You don't.
Wow.
Their friends can show them all kinds of ways around the blockers. And in the boys' world, that's what they do. Okay. They may not tell you that, but they do. I have kids that talk to me for some reason.
Wow. So what I appreciate is that when you guys go down there, it's mostly the women who go and talk to the girls, but I imagine you guys go with them kind of as protection for your ladies as well, in case there's any issues.
The guys are security. They're a prayer team, but sometimes what we have is we have some of the boys that are working the streets who come by too.
Yeah.
In those cases, what we want to do is we want to connect the boys with the men who will sit down there. And so we sit there and we talk and we sing, we play worship music, and we restock the girls. You know, the girls usually have bottles of water with them, and so we'll keep our prayer team stocked with water, and they give away water to the girls who are there just a little season of refreshing.
So how do you get the girls from on the street to in your program?
You know, our goal, most of these girls come from all over the Dominican Republic. And so what they need to do is most of them need to go back home. They need to say, you know what, this isn't winding up the way I thought it would. And what I need to do is I need to go back to school, and I need to start over again. But we also have 3 what we call security houses. They're called our village houses. And these are the girls that we can move, girls that want to be, and we can move them into a safe place. And then we can begin to bring about education for them. We also have a church. It's called the Zion Fellowship. And whereas most churches, to be honest with you, in the Dominican, these girls would not be welcome. They would know who they were, and they would, even though they're members of their own community, they'd say, you stay away. You're a danger to our men. And maybe they could be, because men are men and women are women. Okay. But that can be any place.
Yeah.
There has to be a place where the sinners can come.
Yeah.
There has to be a place where we can come and find refuge, and somebody will believe in us again, and somebody will speak hope and speak life into us again. So we have these little QR codes on the track thing that we use, and it directs them directly to our church where they can begin to come in. And we don't care if they worked on Friday and Saturday night. They join us on Sunday morning. Just start.
Yeah.
Just start. Just start making the transition. Start believing. You know, hope, the Bible says that hope is the seed of faith. And then faith is the seed of reality. Okay. That faith is, remember where it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Okay. So let's get them started in the right direction. Let's get them saying, maybe my life could be different.
Yeah.
Maybe I could change. Maybe I could have peace. Maybe I could have hope. Yeah. So let's plant that seed.
That's so good. And then you guys also do work with, you go to the slums, right? And you bring food every week?
We feed in the garbage dump because, well, for one, is a lot of the girls come from those garbage dump families. But we go in and feed the people who are living at a garbage dump. These are mostly Haitian refugees, and they have no paperwork. They're not legal in any country, often even their own country of Haiti. They don't have legal paperwork to be there. And they scrounge through the garbage dump for scraps that come from the hotel. In those scraps of food are also all the toilet paper, because we throw our toilet paper in the trash, not into the toilet in the Dominican. Okay. And so it's a very dangerous job. We go out there and we feed them big cups of soup. And you've been out there, right? You've been with us there,
Uh-huh.
and big cups of soup. And oh, you weren't on the mission
I
trip. That's
wasn't
right.
there. Steven did.
Next time, okay. Big cups of soup and peanut butter sandwiches that our teams make, and bananas, and we bring in about 400 gallons of water into the dump every day. That's clean water because they have no access to water
Wow.
up there. And so we provide the water that's going to be the water that they'll drink. It's going to be the water that they'll use to bathe in
I think
right
the
there.
thing that struck me when Stephen told me about all that was that these Haitians are a people that live in a limbo space where
Right.
the country they're in is the Dominican. It's not their country. They can't get back to their country. In the Dominican, they can never become a viable citizen. Like they can never
Right.
have a viable job. They can never own property. They have no hope out of their situation. They're just literally stuck. And I'm like, my brain as an American almost can't compute that because here there's always a path out, and maybe that's just the hope that the Lord gives too, is that there's always a pathway out. How have you seen the Lord make a pathway out for these Haitians who like live in this no man's land?
That's a great question. We have seen some neat things happen. We've been able to find jobs and create jobs. Had a guy who brought down 2 chainsaws, and we picked out one of our guys and gave him chainsaws, and now he cuts lumber that comes to the garbage dump, where he used to have to cut it with basically a machete.
Oh,
Now
wow.
he can do 6 times the amount of work in the garbage dump because of the chainsaws
Wow.
there. A neat work, but a lot of times I wish I could tell you there was a great success story. I wish every story that I would tell you would be the happy ending and
No.
and everybody ride off into the sunset. But for these older Haitians, there's not much that I can do because legally I'm limited to what I can do and what they can do. But what we can do, and it's taken a while, is to talk them into allowing their children to come to a school. And so we pay for these Haitian kids to go to a private school. I won't tell you where that is just because of security wise. We do this because they aren't legal to go to school in the Dominican.
Yeah.
But we have a Christian school that, shall we just say, works with us. and they have I'm told they have a little code that they use on days that they have the inspectors there, that they let those kids from the garbage dump know if they show up at school that day and they see this sign, they turn around and walk back home. And so they're out of. But see, when we can rescue those kids,
Mhm.
we can save the next generation.
It's true.
That's what I can do.
That's
And
good.
you know, so often in life, we're faced with a problem that looks insurmountable.
Mhm.
And we go, oh, there is no easy answer. There's no ultimate fix. And so here's what I want to encourage your people is that you do the next best thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And you wait. We don't always have the full answer, but you take the first step. You take the next step. We do this big mountain trip. I don't know if your husband and family talked about the big mountain trip when they were there, where they truck up the side of they go from 0 foot sea level up to 2,600 foot in the air. Okay,
Wow.
and it's a trail. I mean, it's a rough trail. And if you look at the top, if you look all the way up at the top, you'll go, I'll never make it. I can never get there. That's impossible. And we say, look, all you need to look at is the next step.
Hmm.
You look at the next step and you do that next step well. And then God will give you the next step to look at.
Yeah.
And so there's life.
That's so good. I love it. And honestly, I want to encourage you guys, if you're like, what's my next step? Honestly, giving, financially supporting is because the word of God says that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so
Yes.
where you sow, you're invested and your heart will naturally attach to the things that you put money toward. And so even just supporting financially is one of the simplest, easiest ways that you can get involved. Praying for this ministry is another way that you can. Have him come speak at your church and raise money by getting involved at your church and bringing more attention to the mission that they're doing. Sharing it on social media. And then, of course, ultimately, like, see if for those of you who feel like I want to go put my boots on the ground, then go on a mission trip and go see. In fact, it was a short mission trip. It's like 5 days or something. I was like,
Right.
Steve, this is the shortest mission trip you've ever taken. But they had all these stories when they came back. And so for those who are worried about the time off work, this is an ideal situation. It's a very short trip.
I don't know when this is airing. I'm thinking probably soon. Between now and the end of December, we have this wonderful matching grant that a donor has given to us, and we need to raise another $70,000 to get the full extent of this grant.
Okay.
If anybody would like to donate to that, they could go to cupsmission.com, just click on the donate button, and give whatever they can. I don't care if that's $1. That would be helpful to us. $1,000. The question is, what are you going to do with that, Mike? I'll tell you what we're going to do with it. Our current church we don't have enough room. Okay, but even harder than that, worse than that, our current sewing factory, where we can give the girls jobs after they graduate the sewing program, needs to be quadrupled in size. We can quadruple the amount of girls that can actually have a job. And so I need to do that. So we're raising the church up, and we're going to take the entire church now and almost double its size. But what's going to be the second level is going to be an entire sewing factory for girls, so they can really truly have an impact directly on the lives of girls, not just for a day, not just for a moment, but through this, that would be for the rest of their lives. So if you could go to cupsmission.com, any type of gift would be great.
Okay.
But put down in a little comment box, put matching, or put down saw Java with Jen, so we'll know there, and or pick up one of the books. That would be a great way too.
Perfect. Yeah, talk briefly as we wrap. You mentioned that you just wrote a book, and so tell us a little bit about it.
I have a new book called Holding Someday. Holding Someday. I wrote it with my good friend, missionary friend, W.R. Ponder, and a great guy. It's a novel. It's a novel that takes you on a journey of a girl in the United States who is torn in the midst of the whole Roe v. Wade episodes that we just went through, of the overturning of that. And she is torn between what she will do and what choice she will make. She ends up going to work for a pregnancy resource center, and then she gets hired by basically an abortion clinic at the same time. And for a short time, she works at both places. She sees the insides and outsides. What's neat, Jen, is all of these stories are true stories, real stories that actually happened. We had to change the name to make sure that everybody was protected. But I know it's 110,000 words. It was 200,000, but the publisher thought it might be a little long.
Yeah, maybe.
So we're working on. They've already talked to us about some sequels and things like that. But if you want to give something to someone this Christmas that will help our mission, but also help someone who's maybe on the fence, maybe they're a millennial, maybe you've got a daughter or daughter-in-law who's going, I'm not sure I'm really pro-life. Get them this book. They won't know whether the book is pro-life until they get to the very last page of the very last chapter. But I promise you, it will change the way they view it all. So you can get it at Amazon. You can get it at Faithful. You can get a discount at faithfultext.com, faithful, TEXT.com right there. Holding Someday. If you want me to come and do comedy, MikeWilliamsComedy.com, MikeWilliamsComedy.com. And there's videos you can watch and see what I am when I'm funny.
Yeah. Well, and I'll put those links in the show notes. So if you guys want to get his book, have him come do comedy, or check out his mission in Dominican, we'll have all those links for you guys in the show notes. But Mike, thank you so much for what you're doing. Like, just listening to the work that you're doing, it just gives my heart hope. Obviously, we can't all do all the things. And so it gives me so much encouragement seeing the people in the body like yourself doing their part. And it just gives me encouragement and a hope. And I'm excited to send my family again to come with you.
Amen. I'm looking forward to seeing them again. I want to speak one word of encouragement to everyone out there. Choose to live your life more worthy of a statue than a tombstone. We'll have time to cast our crowns at his feet, but for the life we've been given, make it count. Make it move some mountains. Why? Because God is in us. And when he is in us, there is nothing impossible because he is there. He is the strength. He's the, to use the old Bette Midler line, great theologian she was, he's the wind beneath our wings. And that's true. Thank you, Jen. It was great to be on the program with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here with me, Mike. You guys, thanks so much for listening. Hey, do listen. I encourage you to do it every time because these episodes are so good. I love my guests. Send this episode to some friends. Send this to maybe you know someone who's been burdened for trafficking and doesn't know what to do, but they're gripped by the gravity of it and they want to do something. Send this to that person. Send this to anybody that you know that would resonate with the content that we're talking about, or maybe they'd want to connect with Mike, or maybe they're a pastor and they want to have him come to their church, whatever it is. Send it to everybody in your phone. Just send it to everybody. And you guys, make sure you come follow on Instagram at Java with Jen. Do some searching, find Mike online, or grab some of those links in the show notes and check out everything he's got going on and how you can connect with him. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We love you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. Listen, let's stay connected. Come follow me on Instagram at Java with Jen, where you can follow the latest and say hey. It's a really great way to stay in touch. Many of you have also asked how you can support the show. You can make donations through the Anchor app or on Patreon, or of course by sharing, rating, and reviewing on social media and iTunes as well. Your heartfelt feedback always reminds me why I do this. Also, don't miss our merch store where you can get super cool Java with Jen swag and coffee. Find it at javawithjenmerch.com. Until next time, remember, hearing God's voice is simple, and he wants to be a part of your everyday life. See you next week.